Did you miss your deadline to renew your Medicaid coverage? You can still send your completed annual review form to Healthy Connections Medicaid. You may be assigned to another health plan, but you can ask to come back to First Choice within 60 days of renewed Medicaid eligibility. It's your family. It's your choice. First Choice is the right choice. Renew and choose us. Visit selecthealthofsc.com/renew to learn more.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Join us as we seek the truth and travel the long road to justice. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi Fruit Loop. How you doing?
I am good. How are you?
Good. I'm tired. We got home late from the concert and I had to get up at 6 like normal. So we were all feeling it, but it was so worth it. We had the best time. I got repping my James Taylor shirt today. So I have to tell the sweet story before we get started. So my son's name is Mason James, and James is a family name that every man on my dad's side, they have James in their name. So I carried it on with him. Well, when he was a little baby, literally starting the first day in the hospital, I would sing Sweet Baby James to him, but I would replace it Sweet Mason James. And I did that probably every day until he was maybe 3 or 4 and just didn't cuddle as much. So last night, right before we go, I said, Mason, do you remember when you were a baby and I used to sing Sweet Baby James? And he said, that's literally one of my earliest memories. So when he sang that, I got a little choked up. But we had a great time. And so when we do something really fun that's memorable, the kids will say core memory unlocked. And so we were walking in the car and Sarah Rose looked at me and she said, core memory unlocked. It was so awesome. We had a great time.
There was a concert we all?
No, she went to see Shovels and Rope with us years ago, but this was kind of the first. She knows all of James Taylor's stuff. So she was singing along. It was super cute. Great time. Sang all the good stuff. So we want to give a shout out to our sponsor. I'm awaiting a package from our sponsor. I'm very excited. And you guys can have that same little surprise when you open your box, and your quilt's way better than you could have imagined. So go to twocooltshirtquilts.com/prettyliesandalibis and see what they can do for you. Pillows, all kinds of really cool stuff. And what can they do, Fruit Loop?
They can take your t-shirts and make them into a quilt that is too cool.
Yes, they can. We want to give a big thank you to Diane, Sharon, and Kathy for the PayPal donations. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. So we're going to just briefly go over these filings. I read through them, and it's a lot, and it's just kind of repetitive to every filing they file. They just want everything.
It's typical means, right?
Yeah, there's one in there with Lindsay Blake and then Pryor. But so Judge Boyce granted the motion for the jury transcript to be sent to Archibald. He filed that. You know, it's weird because in her case, we mainly still see Mark Means filing stuff. So Pryor filed an objection to the state's motion to reconsider the court's ruling on the jury being sequestered. He said the state had plenty of time to present evidence at the hearing on October 4th, but they chose not to. And he says now that the court has agreed to move the trial, the state is attempting to seek a motion to reconsider. And he says they haven't presented any kind of statutory authority allowing them to, Lord, girl, I need a nap. I got to make all these school runs. And I'm just like, coffee. So he says they haven't done anything to be able to seek a motion to reconsider, essentially. And he says the state is trying to sandbag the defense.
Always.
Of course. So Means filed an objection to the legal proceedings. And in the filing, he said on or about November 8th, 2021, the court issued an order for a scheduling conference regarding trial schedule, which is going to be December 2nd. That's the day that Chad has 3 hearings kind of back to back.
Yep.
And so I don't even have here what he said, but essentially he was just saying that he didn't think they could do this because Lori's incompetent. But I mean, this is Pryor's chance to get the case severed organically. I think they're going to run with this next trial date if they can.
Sure.
He wants it over.
Yep.
So also Means sent a subpoena to the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. He's asking for everything. I mean, all the files about custody, control, treatment, and the like of current inmate Lori Vallow. And he also he wants it no later than May 8th, 2020. So, that's come and gone.
I think you copies and paste a lot.
We're in November of 21. It's not even in the same zip code of May 8th, but there you go. So what's he asking for?
So he's asking for everything related to her care, including records, emails, communications, etc., and anything related to the homework assignment of calling an attorney. So we knew that was coming. It has to do with her talking to the attorney for the LDS church. Web searches or any way she got the number to call, any documentation of her restorative program, CVs, degrees, licensure. That's a weird word. Licensure.
Yeah.
That's weird. You know, you look at these words and you're like, how does that even matter? That's not even a word, but anyway.
You know what I'm bad about is I'll write something down, and do you ever have that moment where you know you spelled it right, but it looks completely wrong, so you go back and forth for like 5 minutes?
Yeah, and you type it in your phone to see if it underlines
I
it.
do. I see if it highlights it. Yep.
Yeah. So job description, etc. of providers. He's asking for ethical codes of the department. So I guess with that, he's wanting to know, did they overstep their bounds?
Yeah.
He's trying to prove they overstepped, I guess.
Yeah.
Though this order was issued in the above case, it directly applies and attempts to enforce a legal proceeding against defendant Lori N. Vallow, quotes Daybell. There is no realistic way to avoid violating defendant Lori N. Vallow Daybell's rights of the stay while incompetent if this court proceedings with ordering, scheduling a trial in this matter.
I mean, they would be having a joint trial if she weren't competent. So
yeah,
this is the one thing I do agree with Pryor on. If she's not ready, Chad doesn't need to wait.
Yeah.
Get this, but I know it's going to be hard because then you're going to have to move 2 trials.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, what do you do? We don't know when she's going to be deemed competent. I mean, I always use the example. It took Elizabeth Smart's kidnapper 8 years to be found competent to stand trial.
Yeah.
I don't think this will go that long, but she going to ride that choo-choo train as long as she can.
Yeah. Yeah. So Means has sent a subpoena to the state president who excommunicated Chad, asking for records for the excommunication of Chad, essentially asking for anything you could imagine, including proof of why he was excommunicated. We all know why.
I kind of thought about this. I mean, I don't know if that, to me, it's kind of like religious stuff. I guess should be, I don't know if it should be private, stuff like this, but it made me wonder, is this maybe going to be part of Lori's defense where they're saying, okay, give us the reasons why he was excommunicated. And is Means going to say, look, the church said this guy's dangerous. He's teaching crazy stuff enough to get him kicked out of this church. So, my mind just kind of went there. Is this maybe going to be a glimpse of that defense of Chad was the instigator?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a thought. I read through some of that. He couldn't even pray or anything.
He can't pray?
He couldn't pray like in the temple or anything. I mean, he's not allowed in the temple when he's excommunicated. But like it lists everything they can't do. And
wow.
So like if he was in another ward, I guess he couldn't enter the temple, but I guess he could enter a ward. Some of you guys can explain that. But it said that like he couldn't pray or anything.
Can you imagine how bad it is for you to show up at church and like the pastor or whatever is like, you got to go. Bye. You cannot enter.
Yeah. What if they had a little button?
Right.
So-and-so in row 7, seat 5.
He's a bad seed. Get him out.
And a door drops out and he just drops out the bottom. Yeah.
Get people come carry him out.
Yeah. He could have portaled out.
See, there you go. But his vibrations might be a little low now. They ain't been going to temple.
True, because they can't
Portal's
get in the
busted.
temple. Yeah. Wonder what he thinks of that now.
I don't know, but I always get this visual when we're talking about portals of Bill and Ted in the phone booth.
Yeah.
Like
So
that's how I see portaling.
our listener, we gave a shout out. Our little lady friend, Kathy.
Yeah.
They said thank you. She made them rewind the thing 11 times to let them
Oh,
hear
that's
it.
awesome.
And she loves our portal joke, so that's what made me think of that.
There we go. Bill and Ted.
There you go.
How cool would it be to have a portal like Bill and Ted and be able to go to any point in history?
Yeah, it's like what's that cart? It's not Disney. It's oh my goodness. It's the dog. He's a dog, and he's got the little kid he adopted. Peabody, Mr. Peabody.
Peabody and Sherman. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Sherman,
Yeah.
Mr. Peabody. Yeah. It'd be like
That's
that.
fine.
That'd be cool. Yeah. So also asking for any communication between him and Heather Daybell, Rob Wood, all the policy agencies, etc. Lindsay Blake filed a response to specific requests for lab testing from Pryor's August 24th. He was she basically refers him to websites for abbreviations and things like that.
It was funny because after every request he had, she was like, here's the email, or here's the website where you can find this information. There were like 4 things he asked for, and she just gave him a web address.
Oh my goodness. He asked for reports of matches between samples, and she responds, there were no matches between samples in this case, and any lab personnel or forensic unknowns.
Yeah, and I saw some people were a little worried about that, but if you kind of read, they're saying they don't have any lab DNA, like lab workers. It kind of like a cross-contamination. And it said forensic unknowns, which tells me that if they found DNA on something, they know who it belongs to.
Yeah.
So I know some of our listeners had read over this and said, oh, they didn't find a match. It said forensic unknowns. So clearly they know. Yeah. So we're going to, for about 10 minutes, get into this police interview with Zulema. Now, we did do the summary a few episodes back, but we decided to go back since there's so much in here. And it starts off with the investigator asking Zulema if she's tired of talking to them. And she says her mind's like an aquarium, and you put your hand on the bottom and whoosh, all this stuff comes up. And she says memories and connections. Then you start beating yourself up. Like, how could I have gotten involved with people like this? I used to have an aquarium. Remember, like all the soot would come up from the bottom and stuff. But I could have thought of a better analogy, but I'm not here to judge.
Yeah.
So the investigator said they needed some clarifying information about things that have come up. Now, they also re-interviewed Melanie Gibb on April 30th. So they interviewed her not too long again after Zulema. And Vince from Fremont County was there in the interview room, and Zulema's attorney. I think the second investigator may have been from Idaho as well. I didn't catch if he said it, but it seems to me like they had traveled down. They talked about going to a baseball game and stuff. So the investigator asked if she's getting back to normal, and she says yes, except when reporters reach out, and she says she hasn't spoken to the media. She's the smartest one of the bunch in that regard. She hasn't said anything to anybody. And that's...
I remember they called the law on
Tyson Draper?
Yeah.
Was it Tyson Draper?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they called the law on.
Oh, that's right. Her daughter did. So the investor said they've been going... The investigator. Oh my gosh. They said they've been going over reports she gave to Gilbert PD. And he said some of her statements doesn't match what she has told Chandler Police Department. And he wants to clarify why she told them something different.
Ooh.
And she asks if this is about the day Alex died, and he said yes. So he asked if she remembers anything she told Gilbert PD about Lori and Chad. And she said there's a time frame of about 2 weeks that's really foggy for her. But that night specifically, she remembers certain things. She just doesn't remember a timeline. She doesn't really know the order of how things happened. And her lawyer said they've never seen the statement she's made to Gilbert. I think the investigator said that they had them, but he explains what they're trying to do is eliminate some defense strategy with Lori and Chad that they might bring up during trial. And they assume they're going to try to pin all this on other people, or they might try to make her look not so credible on the stand when she testifies. So they just essentially wanted to get together and make sure she's clarifying some things that are confusing that a defense attorney is going to jump all over. And the one thing is when she last talked to Chad and Lori, he said that she had told Gilbert police she had no idea how to get in touch with Lori and Chad when they had asked her who Alex was on the phone with. And he asks why she told them that. So Zulema wonders why she would have told him that, because he was on the phone with Lori and Alex and she knew that. And he said, you've also told them you've only met Lori a couple of times before she moved, and you hadn't seen her since she moved a few months ago, and she didn't think Lori was married. So what'd she say about that?
So she says she doesn't remember saying that. Her lawyer asked if she did or didn't know Lori was married at the time, and Zulema said, yeah, I knew she was married because she had sent me pictures of when she got married. She said, let me put it this way, I saw the pictures on the beach, them both dressed in white, and they were dancing and kissing, so I assumed it was a wedding ceremony. Her lawyers asked the investigator about the statement Zulema hadn't seen Lori since she moved. The investigator and lawyers start talking amongst themselves, and the investigator says, we know Zulema had went up there to Rexburg, and her lawyer says, I wonder if she means since they moved to Hawaii. The investigator said she didn't know what state Chad and Lori lived in. He said things like that are what the defense are going to ask you.
Yeah.
She said when they left Rexburg, they didn't tell anyone where they were going, not even Alex. He asked them. They wouldn't disclose their location. The investigator then says, you had no idea they were in Hawaii, and she shakes her head no. He asked about the times they had a conference call, and she said she only found out they were in Hawaii when she saw it on the news. He says back in the report, they talked to her and Melanie P. about going to Hawaii after they were married and asked if that's not true. She says she doesn't remember when this was, but she remembers them saying that. She looks at her phone. The investigator says their timeline has that in November of 2019, and they go missing in December. He says you had a conference call with them the first week in December, you and Alex and Melanie P. Ian was on the phone. Zulema finds something on her phone and said on November 9th, 2019, Lori texted her and Alex both. This could be you. Come to Hawaii. This was the same day she sent the wedding pictures. And they were married. Remember, if they were married on November 5th,
Right.
2019.
So just about 4 days later, she gets her wedding pictures, starts sharing them and tell them to come. Okay. So Zulema says she responded to her with scripture because they were still trying to get her to move. So if you remember, Zulema was really hesitant about making that move to Rexburg. All of her family was in Arizona. So her lawyer says this was the wedding in Hawaii, but they came back and then they vanished around Thanksgiving. And he says, is this kind of the time you didn't know where they went? And Zulema says, that's it. So it seems like maybe there's just a little confusion between what Zulema was telling investigators, but she says that when they went back to Hawaii, they didn't tell anybody where they were going. So I can kind of see where maybe that got lost in translation. But her lawyer said it's not like they were saying for Zulema and Alex to move to Hawaii, more like just to come visit. And the other investigator said they had conversations that after they got married, they were moving to Hawaii. And her lawyer says with Zulema, and the investigator nods and says also with Melanie Pulowski. So what they're saying is just there were conversations there they could prove they had. Yeah. And again, the investigator says you told Gilbert you didn't know where they were. You didn't know how to get a hold of Lori, and you've only met Lori a couple of times. Do you see what I mean? There's a discrepancy, and Zulema agrees. So the investigator said that's why we want to know what you told why you told Gilbert this stuff. Her lawyer says before they get into all that, he doesn't want Zulema to say anything about potentially misleading Gilbert police before he hears the statement. He said, I think what she's told you guys is the truth. That's what the agreement was, that she would come in and tell you guys the truth. So there's a discrepancy between the two. And the investigator says, again, we just want to get this stuff out. We want to get in front of all this stuff before the trial and figure out if you did make the statement and if you did, why. So her lawyer says, do you remember making that statement? And she says, no, I remember going to the hospital, then putting me in one ambulance. They took Alex in another ambulance. They started working with him and they put Zulema in a room. And she says she doesn't remember much between that and when they brought her back to the room. She said to turn off the machines for Alex. So I guess maybe they let her turn off the machines. She says,
Why did they put her in an ambulance? Were they treating her?
No, I think just maybe to get her to the hospital quickly with him. I don't know. Because I don't think the EMTs would have known what was going on as far as legally with this. I mean, I'm sure it was clear something was up because so many police officers were in the house.
Yeah.
But all I can think is maybe they just said, look, here, we'll get you to the hospital with him. They had no reason. Yeah. I thought it was more odd that they let her turn the machine off.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do that to my family member, but anyways. I mean, maybe some people do, and maybe that, I don't know. But Zulema said, I don't remember the person that came to talk before or after that, and she can't put it all together. She says, I don't even remember the name or the person who was there or what they looked like. So she's just having a hard time really putting things together when he was in the hospital. That kind of jumped from Hawaii back to the day he was not murdered, the day he died.
Oh, Freudian slip.
He murdered himself.
She says, I remember when I turned off the machine, someone came and said I couldn't touch him anymore because he was considered a crime scene and I needed to leave. I asked for a couple of minutes with him and they gave me a few moments with him. And I remember coming out of the room and my son-in-law came and said to someone, we're going to get a lawyer, speak to our lawyer. And I remember leaving. I remember.
Yeah, I always thought that was really quick for her son-in-law to at the hospital. I mean, Alex isn't even cold yet, and he's lawyering up.
Yeah, yeah. They ask if she's been to Rexburg or Idaho since, and she says no. Her lawyer has left to take a call, so they're talking weather in Rexburg. Zulema said it was cold last time she was there. The investigator asked about the bag of cash Alex gave Zulema and asked when he gave that to her. She said he didn't necessarily give it to her, but a couple of days before he died, he told her, if anything happens to me, I want you to know, if anything happens to me, there's a bag of cash for you in the closet. It's not much, but it's for you.
Yeah. I think he knew he was going to die. I think he took something. I'm sorry. It's too much of a coinky dink. The day after Tammy Daybell's exhumed and boom, he's dead.
Yeah, and he makes that statement.
My picture's frozen. Is it frozen for you?
Nope, you're good.
Okay.
So he asked if she counted the money, and she said after he died, they asked the police to bring the bag down, and her daughter and son-in-law counted it. There was between $5,000 and $7,000 or something like that. When asked if anything else was in the bag, she said she still has the bag and the money was in a Ziploc bag inside of that. And she said she looked through it a lot, but for the life of her, she can't remember what was in there. She thinks for a while. She said maybe a pair of headphones. She said she could take a look. Her lawyer asked if she's taken anything out, and she said the headphones so she could use them. The investigator asked if she took anything else out, and she said it's possible. And she asked if she could have been looking for something, and the investigator says he's wondering because they had reports there were other things in there. Zulema says, like what? And he says there was a gun associated with a bag of money. She says, oh, okay. Is that what you're asking for, the guns? And she says the guns were in separate bags, not in the bag of money. She said the guns were in a case and they had the clips in the bag.
Yeah, so he asked again what was in the duffel bag with the money. And then he says, let me ask you this. Was there a phone in the duffel bag? And she says, yeah, I think that's where they found a phone because they took a phone. And she said it was on the inventory sheet they gave her, but she doesn't know exactly where they found it. And he asks if she went through the bag after her kids did, and she said no. He asked if Alex saying if something ever happens to me regarding the bag was an odd statement to her, and she said she told him, don't say things like that. Why would you say something like that? And Alex said, just in case. And Zulema said in the back of her mind, she wondered if he did something to himself now that this has all kind of come together. And this was 2 days before he died.
Yeah.
And she said he told her this earlier the day before he died or the day before that. She couldn't remember. The investigator wants to talk to her about the conversation she had with Alex when Tammy's body was being exhumed, and he asks if she remembers saying to Alex, "Are you going to have anything to do with this?" Why would you think he may have something to do with this? And there was something in there where I think in a prior interview, they thought that was obviously an odd statement. He said, "Look, if I know somebody who's got somebody they know is being exhumed, the last thing I would ask is, would you have something to do with this?"
Yeah.
So he brought that up. And then I think we'll finish this part and then we'll stop here for the day. She said Lori and Chad had called that day and they were the ones who told Alex that they were exhuming Tammy's body. And she said the way they were talking, they weren't saying they were worried or anything like that. It was more a feeling she had that this was really weird. So she thought they should be reacting differently and not so nonchalantly about it. And she thought, are they hiding something, or do they know something, or did they do something? And she said she knew if she had asked Lori and Chad about any of it, they wouldn't have said anything. But she thought if they had been doing something or he did something, Alex might have told her. So she asks him if they exhumed this body, are they going to find anything? And he said no, but Zulema says she doesn't know if that's true or not. The investigator, this is the part, he says if a friend of his wife's called and said one of her friends is being exhumed, that wouldn't even be a question. That wouldn't even cross his mind.
No.
So we'll end here. And he asks, why do you think maybe Chad and Lori had something to do with Tammy or Alex maybe knowing what happened? And Zulema again says she remembers them saying Tammy had become a zombie. And she doesn't remember who said what, but Alex was always like, I was told, or Lori would say, I was told. And then Chad would say very little. And it was kind of hard to tell where the information was coming from. They were saying Tammy was supposed to die on her trip to Utah and that Chad had this vision that Tammy would die in a car accident. So it's all the same thing in between Charles and Tammy in a way. They were saying she was going to die in a car crash on the way to see her parents, and that didn't happen. So then she's shot at. All crazy. They didn't really try to get creative with it. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude, but I mean, they're doing the same thing to Charles and Tammy, and it just becomes really clear.
Yeah.
The thing that blows my mind is that they never think that Kay and Larry would never want to see JJ again, or Colby wouldn't want to see Tylee. You have to wonder. What were they really thinking? Because they weren't thinking. So I think we'll stop here. We still got a little ways to go with this. It wasn't as long as Melanie Gibbs because they took probably a 20-minute break while Zulema's attorney took a phone call. And like I said in the previous episode, Zulema's not as talkative as Melanie. So it went a little quicker. So we'll pick this back up tomorrow and hope you guys have a really good rest of your day.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Wells Fargo presents one of the surest ways to grow your money. A Wells Fargo CD account, where you can earn a 5.00% annual percentage yield on an 11-month term with a minimum opening deposit of $5,000. Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/CD rates to open a CD account and start growing your savings with us.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.